Welcome to JN Aquarium. Today we're going to go through how I raise baby ancistrus, how we get to the point of having baby ancistrus, and how to remove the babies from a couple of different types of caves if you so choose to do so. So stay tuned and we'll go through the entire process of rearing young ancistrus. How did we get to the point of having baby ancistrus inside this cave? Essentially, all you need is a male and a female and a variety of caves for them to choose from on where they would like to raise their young and spawn. For optimum success, you should have a hole opening no bigger than 1.5 inches in diameter, as the male needs to trap the female in the cave for spawning to occur. It can occur in any nook or crevice and in some very interesting places, but generally if they have a good cave with a hole no bigger than 1.5 inches, 1.25 inch diameter holes work very well as well with smaller ancistrus. They will spawn. Offer them a wide variety of foods, mainly greens. I make a lot of my own foods that are green for them, and always lots of spirulina in their food. Not picky on the pH of their water, as they will breed in a wide variety of pH. I have bred ancistrus in anything from 6.5 pH all the way up to 8.2 with no problems. So what we're looking at here is a long-fin albino ancistrus with a cave full of babies. I don't know how many babies. It's a very small cave. It's a removable top, 6 inch by 1.25 inch cave. He likes a tight cave. So I'm shining a light in here, but we really can't see the babies well, but trust me, they're in there. So I'll show you how I get the babies out of this cave, which is much easier than the next cave that we're going to try and get babies from. Here's the next cave of babies we're going to take them from. They're just old enough to come out, and quite frankly it's really good to get them out now. It's still a little bit young, as you can see. They do have yolk sacs on them a little bit still, but they're almost dried up. But the reason I want to get these guys out quick is because this tank is full of baby ancistrus killers. These guys have no mercy attacking and killing all the babies if they get out of the cave before I'm able to take them and raise them somewhere else. So one could ask, well, why would you take the babies out of this cave when all of that's in this tank is ancistrus, and rear them somewhere else where they'll be raised for their first couple of weeks? I like to raise them in a small external breeder box so I can put the food right in front of their face, show them all the different kinds of foods that they're going to be eating before I cut them loose into a 90-gallon tank to grow up. And it would be much more difficult for them to find their food in this 90-gallon tank rather than this little wee box. So I believe it helps with the success of my high survival rate. So we have our container of water ready. This water has come out of the tank here, but we're going to take the baby ancistrus out of this cave. So this cave should be easier than the next cave we do because this one has a removable lid. It's just a slate cave. I do sell them if you are interested in buying them. They're on our website, but they're a slate cave with a removable top. So this is difficult to do while recording, but I'm going to give it my best shot. So if we remove the top slowly, you'll see that there's a big male in there, and hopefully that male just gets right out. He's not wanting to go. There he goes. Okay, and now I'm gonna put the top back on because I don't want the babies to get out in here. And then we carefully lift up, out, and into right here. So, not bad for doing it with one hand. Now we can have a look at what we have in here. We don't have many. I will say that male is getting old. He's probably 4 years old now. So his production rates aren't quite as high, but he's throwing a lot of these beautiful browns. And some of these browns have actually been coming out with a blue tint. So yeah, the next step to doing this is simply take them out of the cave. Now, actually a couple ways we can do it with this cave. Seeing as it's a removable top cave, I could just take the water from in here, put the water in here, and put the cave right in because this breeder box is big enough to fit the cave. So I think that's what we'll do so we don't disturb them any more than we have to. Okay, so I've put a bit of the water from the container in there. So now, very simply, pick up the cave and set the cave in as gently as I can into the box. And there they are. They're in there. They still have water, but we will add the rest of this water to help them out. So as you can see, whoops, I dropped my bucket. This is hard to do with one hand, but as you can see, we have the cave in there. We have the existing tank water, the water they're used to, in there. So now, for these guys, what we have to do is drip acclimate them to this tank's water. The water chemistry is virtually the same between this tank and the breeding tank that they came out of, but this tank is warmer. The water that they came out of in the breeding tank is not heated. It sits at about 70 degrees. The water in this tank is 76. I like to have a little higher temperature for raising them as they grow a little bit faster with a little higher metabolism. So I've hooked the air up and they are now being drip acclimatized to the temperature of this tank. And the water chemistry, if the tank is off, chemistry from the breeding tank, this will let the little guys adjust slowly to their new tank parameters. Now, as soon as I take them away from their parents, their father that is, this is the first food they get. This is what they get. This is all they get for their very first day because it falls on them, it falls all around them. They can't help but find it. And I believe it gives their digestive system that little kickstart it needs to get going. Knife, whatever we have, just scoop it and then just dump it in the water. Give it a little swirl. And what it's just powder. It's very fine ground powder, and it will make the water a greenish blue. Get it mixed in good. Any clumps. And they absolutely love eating this. The water will clear when it all settles to the bottom, where they will eat it. We're ready for this guy. This one will be much easier to work on due to the fact the tank isn't very far off the ground and easy to get into. But if we don't get these babies out of this tank, they will get eaten by the rest of the fish in here. So for this process, I'm simply going to pick up the log. The male's still going to stay in the log, and from my experience, most of the time he stays in the log even when you shake the babies out of the log. There's no removable top with these logs at a disadvantage. I don't think so. The advantage of these logs is that it's a food source as well as a home when you're rearing them. The male who is looking after the babies can rasp on the wood, and the biofilm that grows on the wood and so can the babies as soon as they're born. Get started. I have our water already scooped and I'm ready to go. So simply gonna grab the log, lift it out. Try not to take any duckweed or water lettuce with it. I'm holding the log straight up and simply dump it in. As you can see, babies are already coming out. And I just swish it. The male will probably stay in. I've had them jump out a couple of times before. And what I will do is actually check this log again tomorrow, because I don't want to traumatize them any more than I already have. This is a fairly invasive way, but it's the only way I know how to do it. So we'll give it one more swish, dump, back in the tank quickly. And other than having to hang on for a while, the father shouldn't be any worse for the wear. Bad little batch. Looks like somewhere between 30 and 40 babies. So we'll get them over to the rearing tank. Another breeder box. It's a little bit smaller than the first one we used. The reason I set up a separate one for these guys is I believe they're a little bit younger, and the water in the tank that they're coming out of is a much higher temperature than the water in the tank the long fins we did first came out of. So the water actually matches the water that's in this rearing tank. So if I had put them in here, they would have gotten cold because that water is colder being drip acclimated to this tank's temperature. So we're just gonna give them their own, they can have their own space and their own food. So here they are set up. They have their very first food of spirulina powder. It will settle to the bottom shortly, and they're no worse for the wear. Water's dripping, coming in from the main tank, keeping it well sourced. One point I should note, I have the lids off right now for video purposes so you can see inside and whatnot. Never, ever, ever leave your lids off these breeder boxes. The plecos will squirm out the sides. The water gets full enough, they will squirm out and you will find them dead on the floor underneath your breeder box. This has happened to me, and I make sure I put lids on now so that this can't happen. This is a very important point. I offer a very nutritious meal, as the male has not eaten well for at least the last 2 weeks, as he's been looking after and protecting the babies in his cave. This is a homemade food I make that is full of spirulina, peas, zucchini, and shrimp. This tank is receiving my homemade food as well to help replenish this male as well. This food is so packed with nutrition for these fish. I find it's a great way to help them rebound after being off food for a couple weeks. Foods I feed my ancistrus. As you can see, there's a fork in the tank. I put raw zucchini on the fork and I feed them a lot of zucchini. They eat a lot of my homemade foods. Now I mainly feed my own food, but I do feed them cichlid veggie pellets ground up as well. I feed them North Fin Bug Pro, and they get North Fin kelp wafers as well. This seems to keep them in good health, good breeding, and they live a long time for me. Any of my breeders in this tank are 4 to 6 years old now. Rearing tank for most of my ancistrus is a 90-gallon 4-foot tank. It is powered with many sponge filters, 6 to be exact. I keep a piece of wood in there and a couple of caves. What you see in the water right now is the food that I just put into the water for them. It will settle, as you can see over here, and they will peg out on it. There are many fish in this tank, many babies rearing out, and it is absolutely full of duckweed. These babies actually go up and eat the duckweed as well, as you can see up here. So it acts as a filler food source when you're not giving them food available for them. Grow them out in this tank until they're about 1.5 inches. I find that to be a good saleable size for young ancistrus. 1.5 to 2 inches. One point I should note when rearing baby ancistrus is that they eat a lot. And to raise them properly, healthily, and get good growth rates, you have to feed them a lot. And if you're going to feed your fish a lot, you have to have a very regimented water change schedule. This 90-gallon tank gets a water change every 2 to 3 days of approximately 40% water change. I find that keeps my ammonia not in the tank, no ammonia at all, and it keeps the water parameters very stable for them, and I get very good growth rates. So remember, if you're going to feed a lot, you need to do a lot of water changes. Thank you for watching. I hope I've given you some valuable information, or at least some information that you've found some value in helping to breed your ancistrus in your fish tanks. From us to you, happy fish keeping, and take care. Until next time.